I'm going to talk about basically, the methodology of creating content, a massive amount of content. We're going to talk about how it's, how to get it done, maybe some new methodologies or some new pathways to take to get content created. So I'm going to show you a case study of a company we work with that basically followed this methodology, and then some ideas of what's next, what you can do beyond those strategies. All right. So basically, how I got here, basically. So this is me in my office. I was a marketing manager in a company, software company, and so I came to find out, I realized I had 3 different things going on for me at the same time, which is a little bit of a trifecta of what happened. As a marketing manager, of course, I needed content. I'm managing the budget and the people and the resources, trying to decide what to do out-house, what to do in-house, how to make all those things work together. Now, I've been marketing for about 20 years, but I've been producing content as a media producer for 30. So I'm looking to do things, maybe outsourcing, but I know exactly what it takes to do those things. So I'm like, okay, your prices are too high because I know exactly what it takes to do what you're quoting for. So I was kind of on both sides of the table in that aspect. And once I realized I was on both sides of the table, I said, wait a minute, I understand marketing, I understand the production of content. So being a lifetime entrepreneur from entrepreneur family, I said there's a niche here for someone who understands strategy and marketing and automation and all those things, but also can create content. So that was the birth of Content Monsta, where we basically work with companies to be a branch of their marketing department to help them strategize and create more content. So given that strange scenario that I was in, first of all, this session was on a track they called sales and marketing. So who all here would say they're in marketing? Great, most of you, all right. How about creatives? We got a couple, yeah. That's great. Most hands went up twice. That's awesome. Creative marketers, then you're almost in the same position I was in. Sales? Whoa, that's a surprise. Wait, didn't you raise your hand 3 times?
Yes, I did, sir.
I love you, I love you, I love you.
I have those KPIs for conversion to cart for our online.com. So
Wonderful.
metrics.
You got metrics. So creative, metrics, marketing, superwoman right there. Love that, love that. So given those different personalities people have, does anybody have, say, a career before their current career that was like drastically different? Now, if your career title had like some fancy stage name that was exotic, you don't have to tell me about that. But you could, what was yours, sir? Physician. I think I met you the other night. That is drastically different. Well, I created this video series because Content Monsta, one of our first early versions of the company, was also talking about personal branding. And in this series, I talked about how you can use your previous experiences in your previous career to benefit from it in your current career, not to downplay what you learned before. So this is actually a clip from the video of me talking to myself. I do not have a twin brother. That was just editing. And so I came to this conclusion. Now, you recognize this move? So I'm not unfamiliar with the stage. I was a DJ for up until basically last year, right? And so that video that I just mentioned was me talking about how what I learned from being a DJ and how those scenarios in that highly competitive, creative atmosphere that's live on the spot content creation, how I utilize that in my current position as a content marketer. So I'm going to go through a scenario in which I realized some of those things and I put it into a method, all right? So one night I was in Germany on tour, and it was about 20 minutes before my set. Now, being the tour DJ, I was a headline DJ, had my name on the billboard and everything, but there's always a resident DJ who is there, he works there. It's his job Thursday, Friday, Saturday, that's his club. And he always kind of envies the tour DJ who comes through and gets all the credit and comes in after him. So I find myself at a club 20 minutes before, the tour manager's right here, the DJ's to my right, 20 minutes before, and all of a sudden this guy is playing all the top 10 hits as fast as he can. And the tour manager says, yeah, most DJs hate that guy. I was like, why? He said, because he always tries to burn the tour DJ. And so to explain what that means that because he knows he's not the headliner, he's going to play all the hot songs he can before I come on to make it difficult for me to present and play and make the crowd hype, right? So the interesting thing is about a DJ, for the most part, we're presenting the same content. We're not creating music, we're using the same content that exists, but there's different ways to present it. So how did I manage to win that night and hype up a crowd who before me, for 4 hours, this guy had played and tried to play all the things he thought I was gonna play. Here's the method I used to win. First was my playlist. Now think about this as I go through it from a scenario from a DJ standpoint. Think about how this applies to you in content creation. My playlist was determining beforehand what kind of experience and knowledge I wanted to convey to my crowd. I wanted to make sure that I knew my audience well enough to know what songs would resonate with them, to understand how to speak their content language, which was, what songs work for them at what time. It also meant that I need to figure out things that I had that I knew with my knowledge as a DJ that DJ did not know. There's some things that I know my music. I knew, when the break was, when the hot phrase was. I knew which song to play before and after what to make a difference. The order in which a DJ plays music in is a ton of difference in one to another. Same thing goes for your content. So think about your playlist first. What are you gonna play? What is your audience? And pre-select that content. And make sure you're conveying it in the right way. The next thing was to edit. Now this is a live situation. Luckily in content marketing, it doesn't have to happen on the spot. You have some time to edit. But for me, it meant the right size content for the audience. Now it meant, do I play just the intro to tease them? Does it mean play the whole song like he did, which wasn't gonna work so well? That means if I play the whole song, I played the whole song and I'm done for the night. I mean, I've played the whole song and they've heard it. Same thing he played an hour ago, that would kill me as a DJ. So, and as a content creator, same scenario goes. You don't want to get that big video project you paid all this money for and you blow your budget on this one video, you have it, and a month later, that's passed, and so is your budget. So from the editing standpoint, like I said, from my standpoint as a DJ, it was, do I play the intro, the outro, the hook, just to tease them, to let them know what's coming up next. That's kind of in parallel to your social content. You play the hook, you play the intro, you give some teaser, and you figure out the right format for them. And here's the part that I enjoyed the most, both from a content producer and also from a DJ. The remix. I had versions of music that guy just didn't have. Now, did you know that when a pop song is released, there could be as many as 8 to 10 versions of that song coming from the record label at one time? Now, because we all listen to what we listen to, we only hear the version that we listen to. If there's a version of a song that's an electronic dance version and you listen to EDM, you hear that version. If you don't listen to pop radio, you hear that version. You're totally unaware of all the other versions that exist. Same thing goes for your content creation. You create content and you remix it in a way that the audience that you're providing it for, it works for them. Don't worry about that the other audience may not resonate with them because they probably won't see it. The algorithm is so divisive in terms of showing you what you want to see that if you create content that resonates with a certain audience, you remix it for them, then they will see the content from that remix. Also consider too that by remixing content, you get to create more and more volume. When I say volume, I don't mean loudness, as I did in the club that night. Volume is, how much content can you put out? If you only have one version, then you find yourself repurposing that content rather than remixing it. Repurposing is taking the same content and putting the same content again on a different channel, right? That's the same thing as the other DJ playing the same song, the whole version that you hear on the radio, and me coming in 2 hours later playing the exact same version. Same content, different channel, much better off with the remix. I would typically come in with either one that I remixed, that was already remixed, it was something that was different than what was already heard before. So rather than launching that big project, like we said earlier, with that big video piece of content that you blow your whole wad on that one video, think about it in terms of creating small pieces that you can remix at scale. Now that was not intentional. Not a big fan of acronyms. And I pray that when someone asks you, if you do a review, what you learned in this session, please don't tell anyone that Lee taught you the PERV method, because that is not what that was intended for. But If it helps you remember those 4 things and apply them to your content, so be it. Okay, so Forrester said that they did a survey of 60 companies. Out of those 60 companies, only 23 said that they thought they were using video content in its full effectiveness. So on my way here, or prior to coming here, I thought to myself, let me ask the same question to my LinkedIn community. By the way, if you're not connected, let's please connect. And so I asked a question basically, on a scale of 1 to 10, not using 7, what do you think your company does in terms of video content? How well do they use video content? Got some interesting responses back. Chris here mentioned that in his opinion, they haven't been able to produce effective high production quality video at scale in a cost and time effective manner. Now, what Chris is mentioning too, because I actually followed up with him on this, is that there's still this idea, and no one here at this conference knows that because we're all past that, but many companies think that it's still a niche. The video is still like a nice to have. You all heard that before. It's not a nice to have anymore. It's a major channel. And because of that, when they do go for it, they go too big with too much budget, with too much super shiny commercial aspect of it without doing it in a more efficient way. And then Rika chimed in, and she only gave it a 3 or 4 herself. And she mentioned about using that video properly the first time, to repurpose it, to remix it, to edit it. And also, it's interesting. Now, this one, I wasn't as confident about this particular quote for this presentation until last night. And I won't tell who in this room gave me my confidence on this, because the comment about too strangled by their need to cling to fine print or recite a user manual. I heard her comment, and I thought, my God, for sure nobody actually videos a user manual or product description, right? Last night, someone says, yeah, we don't want to do that, but we've been forced to do just that sometimes. Don't do that. Nothing else to say about that. So here's the content challenge. Those that create don't always have the knowledge of the industry they're working in. They know marketing well. Other side of that is those having the knowledge don't create. And I didn't expect so many salespeople to be here. So let's just say those that sell don't have time. I'll leave it at that. I'll be nice about it. So how do we get past that? So let's look at the playlist here for our content. Now, fluff content versus good content. We all know we're past the stage now of fluff content. Those 500 word spun articles you get that you put on your website, we know it's fluff. It worked 10 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, but Google is not hearing that now. So what's working? Longer form content. The challenge is, again, the knowledge, that long form knowledge is not in the marketing department. Detailed explanations. We all know when we Google for something, no matter how complicated the solution we're looking for is, we're going to Google, how do you do this? What do you do to do this? We're looking for information, for detailed information. That's what Google is out to give you right now. And if you have fluff that's just general, about us type stuff, or high level, anything that, in fact, I don't mind taking shots at marketing because I'm in marketing. I've worked as a marketing manager for many years. We often just don't know the depth of the stuff because we know marketing, and we were depending on something we saw in maybe a product description. We're trying to make that more markety, but the result is we can't go that deep because we're in marketing. Not that close to the product. True industry insights, that's working right now because aside from paying your analyst firms, if you have budget for Gartner, Forrester, that's great. If you already have that information, people want to hear that from you in a conversational way. So those things are working. Conversational expertise, not so much a talking head, I'm an expert, this is what I do, da, da, da. More of a, let me happen to be a fly on the wall when this expert conversation is happening, right? That's a lot more digestible when you're consuming content. Knowledge that differentiates. That's the key thing you have to have in terms of content that's the hardest for marketing to get, because the knowledge that differentiates comes from people who are making the product, who are in the field, who are talking to customers, and if you're not communicating with those people, you're not getting the information to make your information differentiate. Now, you can attend the sales meeting and get, a document of, here are our key differentiators, but then you have that list. Turn that into 1,000 words is difficult when you just have a list of what your differentiators are. So all these require something that marketing doesn't possess. I mentioned it before. What is it you think that thing is? Knowledge, exactly. So the problem is, how do you get all that knowledge out of the head of those experts and into scalable content? Again, those that have that knowledge aren't going to create anything. You can't say, hey, Mr. CEO, Mr. Product Development VP, how about doing a white paper for us? Not going to happen. How about, hey, we need 1,000 words, 1,500 words. Can you sit down and write that for me? Not going to happen. So first step is find out who has that knowledge. In every organization, the titles are going to be different, but start with making a list of who in your organization has this knowledge. So internally, subject matter experts internally, people who are creating the product, people who are servicing your product or service, the people who are the sales leaders. Those guys, not only have they been rehearsing their pitch of what their differentiator is every single day, they're almost camera ready with it because they've been doing it over and over and over under high pressure. They have to know this stuff. Not to mention, they have objections. They've heard all the objections. Before marketing even knows about it, they were in a meeting yesterday with a client and they heard an objection. That won't get to marketing for weeks or months. External, of course, your customers for testimonials, your partners. In fact, a lot of the business that Content Monsta does is whenever, like during the holidays, because during the holidays, the companies have their big events where they invite their customers in, their clients, and they do these, they wine and dine them. They also have their sales guys from around the country, the high-level executives. They're all in one place, and they say, hey, we like how you guys capture content. Just come in and get a camera set up. Our marketing person will get them talking, but let's capture their content while they're all in one place. They're going to have information that your competitors will not have. I don't mean just the stuff about your company, but they have experiences that your competitors won't have as well. And then, of course, your company leaders. This is the part when you go, Lee, the C-suite is not going to help us with content. That's not how it works. I can argue that. There's a way to do it. So we'll get to that in a moment. But first, let's talk about creating your base content. Now, there's several ways to do that. You could just interview those guys, write it down. Kind of old school, so I put a side-eye look to that because we're doing that, not so effective. You could do an audio recording of it. That's good because now you have audio. You could do a podcast. That's better. But we all wouldn't be here this week if it weren't for the fact that video is the absolute best, right? And the reasons for that are pretty obvious. I mean, you have your visual, you have your audio, you have your text. All of that comes from video content. That's where your remix power comes from, okay? You know all the elements are there, so now you just have to make sure when you create the content, you create it knowing those elements are there and knowing how to pull it out of that base content. Now, you'll notice, I don't know if you can see all those. I'm going to just mention some of those because no matter how much content you're creating, odds are you're missing something out of this. And we've done cases where we've gotten all of these out of one project, even one video sometime. Podcasts, web page content, articles, infographics, shareable clips, of course, for social, frequently asked question videos, behind the scenes videos, and of course from all that comes tons of social posts. Speaking of the ROI for video, this was a last minute addition to this because often the question is, well, we're making this video and as a marketing manager, I know the pressure's always to what's the ROI for creating video? Make the case for why we should hire this production company and do all this, take all this time. Well, content marketing, video just being a part of that, we all know it's the long game, So if you're creating video, if you're being pressured to create video that's going to turn around and sell in Q1, then maybe you need to kind of resell what content marketing is to your organization. Content marketing is definitely a long game. Video is the long game. So your ROI comes from the reach, the traffic, and the attention you get from the content that you're creating. And if you can measure that, now given, I get deep in the weeds with the technical stuff. I mean, I could take this all the way into marketing automation and attribution and how far down the sales funnel it pushes this stuff. That's all well and good. But the two things. One, most organizations still have this division between marketing and sales and data to where it's hard for them to actually trace that view all the way down to the opportunity, right? So knowing that that's what you should be working towards, for the short term, your goal should be to prove that your video content is increasing your reach, driving traffic to your website, and getting you more attention to your brand. So one of the things we did to try to figure out how to get these C-levels and these subject matter experts to give us content is we developed what's called a video day. It's something the Content Monsta actually kind of productized to sell to companies as this. We'll just do a video day, and what we'll do in this video day is we're gonna basically interview the people in your company who have the knowledge, just to get it out of them, right? And it's more than just an interview. We interview them with a structure that allows us to get the kind of content we want. For example, you know you're gonna make articles, and you know listicles have been working for you, right? So instead of saying, tell us about how great your product is, instead you say, give me 4 reasons why your product is better than your competitors, all right? Because you know that's the setup for that great listicle, right? Same thing goes for your sales guys. They know all the objections, and they would love to bitch and complain about how many objections they get on the call. Ask those questions. Say, hey guys, when you're on a call, what are some of the things that you find difficult to sell about our product? What are some of the objections you hear? And they're going to respond, well, most customers think that, but we can do this. If they're in sales, that's how they're going to answer. They're going to come back with the positive spin on it, right? So ask questions in mind. And in fact, that one kind of answer, customers think this, but we do that, that's a great soundbite. That's a tweet. That's a Facebook post. It's one of those hundreds of pieces of content that you can create if you ask the right questions. So it's not just interview method 101. It's interviewing with a purpose, right? You think about, okay, if I could have the most awesome tweet from the CEO or from the VP of marketing or from VP of product, what would it sound like? And then you, from there, reverse engineer and ask the questions in this long form video content that you're going to chop up and find all these social posts, these 1-minute snippets, etc. I mentioned, frontline sales. They know what they wish their customers knew when they call them, right? So you say, well, if you could get on the phone with your customer in this cold call you're going to make today, or even this warm call, what do you wish they already knew before you even got there? And they'll tell you. Ask that question. Their answer is going to be great content. If you have a lineup of people and they're in different roles or even the same role, but better off different roles, ask them all the same question. What you get from that is 4 different answers more than likely, 4 pieces of content. Now, if I'm a marketer writing that, I'm one person writing one answer, and I'm probably pulling it from brochures and stuff, right? Ask that same question to 4 people, that's 4 takes on it, 4 different pieces of content, and even when you're writing the article and you think, how could I better say that? You got 4 choices, all right? That even goes as deep as SEO, because SEO wants more natural language, right? And so if they give you a natural language answer, it will be a lot less markety and it'll be a lot more googly, basically, all right? So this particular software company, they are a software company that does robotic automation for the software industry. This was a challenge for us. We loved it because, well, it's highly technical, kind of boring, very boring. And being that it's software, you don't have anything tangible, all right? I mean, what you got, screenshots? It's difficult to make software. And so we figured, well, if we can do something interesting from a software company and make massive amount of content from talking about software, then we definitely are in there. So what we did with them was we asked them what their goals were. Their goals were they wanted to explain that complicated process they had. They wanted to make more copy for their web pages. They wanted to come up with more ideas for marketing to write more articles. Even if they didn't get enough from the project, they wanted to have ideas that came from the people who they can't typically get time with. Inside sales said, hey, we want something too. We want to be able to, we're buying in on video, but we're not going to create any. But we do know that if someone asks me a question that I can't answer, I'm not going to push it down the line to the upper salesperson, because that's not what my protocol is. I can use that bite of video to say, hey, you asked a question about automation and how it will work for you, but you didn't like this particular thing, you had an objection. Here's a video that might help. Send them that 1-minute video. So inside sales ended up loving this because they had more ammunition to respond. And then also we know that video, thumbnails and email get better open rates. So they have a really tough job of selling, especially via email. Email is dying a slow death, and putting that video in there actually adds some beef to it. Increase the volume of technical video. That's difficult too. So when a software company, in this case, they're developing new stuff, everything they're developing can't always be put out there. The sales guys are way ahead of the product guys, and so the sales guys can't always show what's being developed. And so you end up with a lot of animations, right? Or abstract descriptions of things that a sales guy who's not a developer, he can't talk to developers because he knows sales, and you have your pre-sales in the middle who they kind of know both lanes, but finding that right mix of non-jargon speak to use for marketing is difficult. So they also want to increase the volume and depth of blogs. More blogs, but also the depth of those blogs, because the blogs were those 500-word fluffy ones that, considering the whole sales funnel, the whole marketing and sales funnel, you need content for every part of that funnel. And marketing was basically skimming the top. Their videos were good, and they're maybe a bit fluffy, but they only worked at the top of the sales funnel, right? When you get deep in the sales funnel, you need some things that are a lot more technical, in-depth. It's not very markety, but your prospects are looking for that information. And it's difficult, as we said, to acknowledge those people who have that knowledge and put it in video. So here's the process. Did a video day. We booked 30 minutes on the calendar for 4 SMEs. Now, if you're an organization where you're sending back email invites, hey, let me get 30 minutes on your calendar for this, that, and the other, people are accustomed to getting invites, calendar invites. So if you go to a high level or a subject matter expert and say, hey, can you sit down and take an interview? Or hey, can you write something for us? Not gonna happen. Just say, hey, let me get 30 minutes of your time. We're just gonna talk about some things just so I can catch up, right? Low pressure. So we did that, set the meetings with them, we prepared questions, as we said before, that would elicit the kind of answers we wanted to get. We did give them questions a few days before. That isn't something we would always do. In fact, we didn't do it for all of them because we wanted to make sure that they didn't become scripted, right? That was the whole goal, was to not let them get scripted, was to have it conversational. And then we asked them all the same question again. And we did get awesome different questions. So here's an example. We did the 4 videos. They were all 8 to 10 minutes. And this is one snippet. And something we did in this also was we didn't try to overkill editing and polishing because we knew it was going to be chopped a million different ways. And especially when sales guys use it to send out, they're trying to get the point across really quick. So sometimes we just jumped into the answer. So here's an example. And keep in mind, this is a software company who does software, robotic automation software for customer service. I just told you that. Not an interview, just a camera in the room. Minimal equipment. That was a very important part. Minimal lights, minimal mics, minimal booms, And for those who didn't know what we were gonna do, because we did just send them a meeting invite, it wasn't quite as intimidating, We often would start the camera before they even came in and maybe just let's do a rehearsal, let's do a dry run, let's just talk about what we're gonna talk about. Next thing you know, that talk about what we're gonna talk about was the greatest content. So none of these were, of course, actors. They were the people who were actually making the product. And this guy is actually, he left his computer coding to make this product. Nobody knows it better than he does. And he gave us information that marketing would not have had a clue to even figure out. Because he's hands-on, he's way ahead of what marketing would have known. And it's funny because working at that time, it's kind of on the cusp, I worked for that company before they became a client. I'm like, wow, how is it we've been in marketing all this time and we didn't know this stuff? Because they thought, well, that's what we do in our silo. That's not marketing stuff. But our customers at the same time are hitting our website and trying to find the deep content that only they had. So here's some of the results of that. Only 2 hours of camera time, 4 people, 30 minutes each, just conversation. We were set up, they came in on their calendar time, we just sat and talked, asked them questions. Only 2 hours of camera time. We got 4 long base content videos out of that, right? We got 14 short ones out of all that, averaging around 1.5, 2 minutes each. There was minimal editing required, not only because it wasn't so much required, we didn't want to, because as soon as you start over editing, you're starting to cut into the authenticity of it. And so we let the stutters stay in there, we let the repeats stay in there, because that way it helped those people become the trusted consultant to the person watching the video rather than the sales guy or the marketing guy. We got 4 blog articles out of that. Now, they were all 1,000 words plus. And to give you an idea of transferring video to text, roughly it takes about 8 to 10 minutes to get 1,000 words, right? So if you were to look at a video calculator or a word calculator, they're typically designed for speakers who want to know how many words I have the right to speak for 10 minutes, whatever. But that's a good rule of thumb. There's lots of calculators you can find to do that. But what we found is roughly if we want to get a 1,000-word article, we need to get a good 8 to 10 minutes, which was typically 30-minute interview, edit it down to 15. It's not hard to get 8 minutes out of that much of an interview. 3 web pages that were brand new pages built on their products they didn't have before. Interesting one we didn't expect happened. One of those snippets was used on a landing page for a webinar, and it drove higher registration for that webinar because several things. One, the emails that went out had a thumbnail of a video in it, so it drove more opens. They got to the landing page, and it wasn't just text. They could watch a video, and the person giving the webinar happened to be one of the guys in the video. So it gave him a little bit of star power, like, wow, okay, I see what he says. I know he knows what he's talking about. I'll attend this webinar. So it actually drove registrations for a webinar. Of course, the social posts are still going on today. They scheduled those out months in advance, and they're still going on. A few more metrics. So of course, we lowered the effort to create content because we didn't go at it, let's say, hey, let's create 4 videos or 14 videos, and how we're going to do that. We went at it as, let's create some amazing base content, right? Find the folks who we know have the information, create the base content, and chop it up. This is a picture from like their YouTube page, right? So they use some for a thought leadership series. They use some to describe some really detailed, gritty stuff about their product that was very specific. That was what that clip was from earlier, was from one of the products. And also, they were able to increase the quantity. That's always a struggle because you want to increase the quantity, but you don't want to go fluffy and just create content for the sake of creating content. And they covered a lot more channels. This is basically the strategy. I mean, if you visualize it, we sliced most of the content verbatim. It wasn't, a lot of editing. And then basically you figure you got the 4 base pieces. Those 4 base pieces fed into large articles and web pages, and then from there, they fed into social content that's still going today. I may mention later on, but a key part of that too was to make sure that all that is intertwined with links. So all that social content going out is linking back to the pages that are new, to the video that's new, the video is linking back out to all of those and their descriptions. So this combination of all these things made each individual piece work better all along. So lessons learned real quick. Video was strengthened by simultaneous push of everything else. Articles, social, having a widespread simultaneous coverage worked better than any one effort at a time would have individually. Video, strangely, ranked higher faster. Maybe it's just a Google thing because, like video. Plus, he also did a lot of LinkedIn stuff too. But of course, the written content lasted longer. All right, so we saw the peak in video, kind of fizzled a little bit, and then the written content lasts longer. And of course, the social stuff lasts longer because it is still being distributed and it's referring back to the written content as well as the video. Adding to the process going forward, sales enablement, be sure to make sure that when you create this content, you have sales in mind because they can definitely use this as a tool. There were a couple sessions this week talking about video and sales, and that's how you get it. You get it from the people who have more experience than the sales guys who are on the front line. Map that content to each other. Any Gary Vee fans in here? There we go. Document, don't create. That's his phrase. I hate to even use it, but it's just the truth. That's why we're so busy typically during the holidays, because we have companies, our clients have their clients in town, and we just show up to just capture stuff. So whether it be the trade show, and I don't mean, catching the CEO on stage at kickoff. That's kind of old school. Try to catch those conversations that aren't scripted at all, right? Catch those conversations when you have your customers in town or your subject matter experts or sales guys in town. Especially when you're in an organization that's huge and has regionals that are spread out around the world. When they get together, capture those conversations. They'll both not be scripted, and also they'll be pretty in-depth to give you better content. And perform a content audit. Make sure that whatever you produce hits all the channels. When we began doing that at Content Monsta, even for our own stuff, we realized that we weren't even fulfilling our own description of what we should do with our content. We make a video, say, okay, this video now becomes an article, now becomes, it's on LinkedIn, but we made a whole grid of where it should be and realized, wow, it's not just forward from video, it's also backwards from articles to video, right? You create video from articles, video from blogs, and you make sure that you're covering all your bases. This is a copy of the content audit that we use. It's just a Google spreadsheet. You can go to our website and get your own copy of it, just download it. And we've covered most channels that we use, but you can add some additional channels to it if you want. We personally have the fields coded for red if we don't have something there. In fact, when this screenshot was taken, I was a little ashamed because I see some videos that had not been yet turned into articles. So you don't want red on your spreadsheet when you work it out. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Really? I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.